Flip a light switch right now and something happens that almost nobody, including most engineers who work on it, can fully picture. You assume electricity travels to you, that somewhere a stream of electrons left a power plant, raced down a wire, and arrived at your lamp. That's not what happens. The electrons already in your wall never go anywhere. They just vibrate back and forth in place, tens of times a second, and they've been sitting there the whole time. Nothing is shipped to your house. Something is told to your house. Here's the part that breaks people's mental model completely. There isn't even a single unbroken wire connecting a power plant to your outlet. Along the way, there are transformers. Physical gaps where one coil of wire sits on one side and a completely separate coil sits on the other, not touching. Energy crosses that empty space anyway. Not through electrons jumping the gap, through the electromagnetic field itself, moving in the space around the wire, guided by it like a track, not carried inside it like water in a pipe. So the actual answer to how does electricity reach your house isn't electrons traveling from a plant. It's a field, rippling outward at nearly the speed of light, while the electrons themselves crawl along at a pace you could almost outwalk. But speed was never really the hard problem. The hard problem is that electricity can't be stored in any meaningful amount on the grid, which means the instant you turn on a kettle, somewhere, a power station has to generate that exact extra amount of electricity at that exact moment, or the whole system starts to wobble. Every plant, every wire, every device on the grid runs on one shared heartbeat, a frequency 50 or 60 cycles a second, depending where you live. And that number is literally how fast the generators are physically spinning. Supply and demand aren't just related. They have to match, to the millisecond, permanently, forever. Or things start to break, and you can watch this happen on a national scale in Britain, because of tea. Grid operators there don't just monitor weather and industry. They track soap opera plots and football schedules, because when tens of millions of people get up at the same second to boil a kettle, it registers as a genuine emergency-level spike. In 1990, England lost a World Cup semi-final on penalties, and the resulting rush to the kitchen caused a demand surge equivalent to over 1 million kettles switching on simultaneously. During Euro 2020's England-Germany match, the mere anticipation of halftime caused roughly 1 billion extra watts of demand to hit the grid within minutes. Somewhere, a team of engineers was watching that match purely to know when to ramp up a power station. Now flip that. What happens when demand and supply stop matching? In 2025, Spain's national grid lost almost all of its power in 5 seconds. Not 5 minutes. 5 seconds. Part of the reason was that too little of the country's electricity at that moment was coming from the kind of power plants with huge spinning turbines, because those spinning masses act like flywheels, physically resisting sudden changes and buying the grid a few seconds of breathing room during a shock. Take that spinning weight away, replace it with sources that don't spin, and the cushion disappears. Below certain frequency thresholds, operators have 30 seconds before things turn critical. Below others, they have single-digit seconds before generators start automatically shutting themselves off to avoid destroying themselves, which only drops the frequency further, and the whole thing cascades. Here's the twist almost nobody knows. When a grid goes fully dark, most power plants can't just switch themselves back on. Large plants need electricity to run their own pumps, fans, and control systems. So after a total blackout, the very power required to restart them isn't available anywhere. It's a real chicken and egg problem sitting inside a machine the size of a country. The fix is a small, specific category of plant built to solve exactly this, usually hydroelectric dams, because gravity alone can spin their turbines with almost no outside power needed. These plants generate the very first trickle of electricity after a collapse, which wakes up the next plant, which wakes up the next, in a sequence engineers actually call a black start.